It has been over 2 years since I last did a top 10 countdown video. And I'm the originator of the top 10 countdown in the NASCAR YouTube community. So let's go back to the series that, for all intents and purposes, started it all. Because there's a topic I want to talk about that I think needs to be talked about. So let's get started. The Superstar Racing Experience, otherwise known as the SRX Series, is one of the more innovative and popular aspects of auto racing that has been featured in such a long time. Season 1, for the most part, was extremely popular and was the talk all throughout the summer. Season 2 was a step down from that. And unfortunately, not for good reasons. And now people are questioning whether there's going to be a Season 3 because of a lot of things that happened in Season 2. And since I like the aspect of the SRX series, but I don't want to see them turn into short-track NASCAR, which is one of the things they said they weren't going to do, was become some variant of NASCAR, I have come up with a top 10 ways that they can improve the SRX series as a whole before Season 3. And I really hope the people of the SRX series takes this to heart. So, for the first time in 2 years, here, from the originator of the Top 10 Countdown in this community, is Top 10 Countdown. Ways the SRX series can improve before Season 3. If you insist on having Michael Waltrip being there, just don't have him there as a driver. That's not going to flow. Mikey has been one of the constant back markers, not only in Season 2, but also Season 1. And it's not because of the fault of the cars or anything. It's just that Mikey does not have it in comparison to other top drivers in the series. Now, you could do with Mikey that you did with Willie T. Ribbs for Season 2 and have him being the roaming reporter or the pit road interviewer or something like that. Just not as a driver. That's not Mikey's thing. It just isn't. So if you're going to have Mikey for Season 3, just not as a driver. That's all I'm going to ask. Do not invite drivers who are notorious for a dirty reputation. One of the reasons that people like the aspects of the SRX series is good old short track racing. What we do not want is weekly Bowman Gray Stadium racing every week. Trust me, I've heard horror stories about the weekly racing series at Bowman Gray Stadium. But basically, if you're going to have this series with all these different aspects of drivers, do not invite drivers that are notorious for being dirty racers. Like, seriously, we can't have stuff like this going on in the series every single week. And it's problematic with quite a few drivers. So, just don't invite drivers like this, and we should not have that much of a problem. And then the SRX series can be what it's supposed to be. Good, old-fashioned short-track racing with none of the stupidity. This is something they kind of sort of tried to do in the Season 2 finale at Sharon Speedway, but it backfired. And I have another point coming up that can actually help with that, but I would like to see an increased emphasis on this, and that is no yellow flag caution laps are counted or time during the heats wasted. And here's what I mean by that. When a caution comes out, it wastes the time of the heat races and the caution laps for the mains. That is something that's not going to fly in terms of this series. And the penultimate round at Peevely, otherwise known as I-55, proved that when you had a 20-lap caution and 13 to 15 laps of that caution were wasted just because Hailie Deegan had to come to pit road. That is not going to fly. Everyone was pissed about that. Like, if you listen to the broadcast, you could hear the fans in the stands booing this.
What is it like, the pressure inside that car for Hailie when you're waiting to get things going? You've got the pressure of the world on you, but then something like this happens.
You just have to be cool. You've got to be cool, Lindsay. You can't, driving a race car requires a lot of focus, a lot of concentration, but be cool as well.
So, the easiest way to alleviate that is to just not have that to begin with. And they tried it at Sharon Speedway, and it was effective, but it also backfired. Because what ends up happening is that because of the time window, and CBS insisting on showing 48 hours, which nobody watches, at least that I'm aware of, they took out 30 laps of the main event. And that leads us to number 7. Okay, so here's the situation in regards to what I just referenced. During the Sharon Speedway event, they had the idea to not count the caution laps, but because the SRX events are on prime time in a 2-hour window, they had to try and get everything done in 2 hours. And with caution laps not counting, and with certain people in the field and certain things happening, that wasn't going to happen. So they ended up cutting 30 laps of the main out of it and just do 10 to go and go from there. That's essentially the NASCAR New Hampshire strategy of 2021. And yeah, the emphasis of them becoming short-track NASCAR, that is not a good reputation, and that is something you do not want to have. So here's my suggestion. When Season 3 comes along, I hope the people of SRX can convince CBS, or whatever network they're going to be on, because I don't know if CBS is going to want them back after what happened. I would like it if they could have the entire broadcast extended to at least 2.5 hours. Because if you're going to have caution laps not count, you need that extra time window, because there are going to be cautions in short track racing. So if you could have it extended to 2.5 hours to maybe 3 hours at most, and limit the time of the breaks, then we can go from there. But if you're going to insist on no yellow flag caution laps or heat time wasted, you've got to extend the broadcast for the TV audience. And that's what I believe should happen. So, have these things come together, and you can make your product much better. Another thing that's been discussed since the announcement of the SRX Series is the fact that the entire season is 6 races. Now, this was the SRX's way of trying to differentiate from what they were being reincarnated from, which was the International Race of Champions, or IROC, where they had the 12 best drivers racing in a 4-race series. They decided to differentiate it from that by making it 6 races, but there's a lot of people out there who are saying that 6 races is too short of an exhibition season. So the recommendation that I believe would be best for them is to increase it to 8 races. It pretty much covers the entirety of the summertime for a lot of people, and it gives just that right amount of balance where it's not too short, but it's not too long. And in addition to that, I feel like an 8-race season would be better in terms of the overall product to give them more notoriety. And it's not just a random... It's like a giant firework and not a sparkler. That's basically the only way I can put that at that point. But I believe extending it to an 8-race season would be the best way for them to go. Cover basically 2 months. And I think that can definitely help in the long run in terms of that aspect. Everyone has been saying it, and we're going to continue to say it.
All right, there's the caution flag. So, yeah, fun flag.
No fun flags. Nobody wants the competition caution. You can try and spin it saying it's a fun flag so everyone does not miss the action. You have side-by-side screens. We've seen this. You don't need a fun flag. Because what it does is that it irks the audience, both at the track and watching on television, saying, we're going to throw a caution so you don't miss any of the green flag action. Huh? You have a side-by-side split screen for that. That's what that was invented for. You don't need a fun flag or a green flag lap limit. That is bogus. You can try and have Alan Velsnick spin it any way you want to. That is a no. No fun flags. And everyone's going to continue to drill you about it until you get it right. Seriously, no fun flags. The fact that this is number 5 shows how bad that has gotten. Seriously, no fun flags. This is another one that was kind of tinkered with in terms of how this is working. And I believe they're trying to differentiate from IROC further. And it is a good start because originally they had a 12-car field or a 12-driver field, which is okay and fine, except that basically mimics IROC. Now, in a lot of the races in 2022 or Season 2, they differentiated a bit, making it 13 because of guest drivers and such. I have the recommendation to increase the count to 16 cars. 16 cars will bring on a good amount of balance. You can have more drivers, more on that later. And the emphasis on differentiality between the SRX Series and IROC can make it better. So I believe increasing it to a 16-car field will give the right amount of balance to differentiate them, the SRX Series, from IROC, and having a good, healthy, competitive field that doesn't feel bunched or limited. And basically, what also happens when you increase the field is that you give more variety of drivers to cheer and root for. Also more on that later. So I believe increasing it, just not one at a time within the 13 thing, just making it 16 at most, and I think that will be the best balance to help out the series in terms of an overall aspect. Even before the finale, I had the idea that I was going to do this countdown, and if the people wanted me to do it, and everyone did. But when the Sharon Speedway event happened, and we learned of something that potentially caused a controversy to make the SRX Series comparable to NASCAR, I knew this would have to be higher than number 8. Because originally I had this number 8, but when this happened, I made it number 3. You need a better emphasis on your championship battle. If you're going to have a championship battle, you have to reference it at least once. Like, how many people knew the points format in regards to the SRX series? Probably not many, because you don't really emphasize it. If you're going to have a championship battle, you need to have some emphasis about it to explain the points and all that stuff. And the reason this ends up being number 3 is the controversy in regards to Season 2, which I already did a video on that, proving why Ryan Newman is the 2022 SRX Series champion, not Marco Andretti. And what also doesn't help is that they tried debunking the claim that Newman actually won the title with some ridiculous bogusness. Now, here's the story that was given on Twitter. In the Season 1 race, Season 1 Heat 1, Marco Andretti had finished 5th. Now, you flip the field, which means that in Heat 2, Marco was supposed to start 9th. However, Marco was told to pit by SRX officials so he could have some repairs done, right?
Well, they hit Marco Andretti's car with the biggest hammer they had in the garage, and I'm not really sure why, but usually that means it'll go faster. So I'm curious to see how that affects it, and it also means that he looks like he is starting from the back. So Marco and Bubba Pollard will be 2 guys that I look forward to seeing go through the field really in this heat.
Marco's radio intercepted a moment ago.
Why did you take that long to call me in? We were sitting there.
Yikes.
Well, what happens was Marco was sent to the back of the field. And he started in the wrong position. Now, instead of not doing a restart until Marco was in his proper position, which would have been the right thing to do to begin with, because the radio towers and the officials are in contact with all of the drivers, and they said this at the Sharon Speedway event. What ends up happening as a result of that, this, is that Marco was gifted essentially 3 pity points as a our bad points type of thing. That's basically the SRX equivalent of NASCAR letting Jeff Gordon into the 2013 playoff format because of Spingate, just to screw over Martin Truex Jr. And if Jeff Gordon would have won the title that year, that would have been the equivalent in here, because Marco Andretti was awarded, he didn't earn it, he was awarded the title that year. So the 3 pity points essentially gave Marco the title. And it shouldn't have, because Ryan Newman's the legitimate champion. Not to mention Marco trying to take out Ryan Newman and breaking his own wrist as a result of it. But anyway, it was a poorly situated situation that would make NASCAR blush. That's how bad that was. And this is the certified story because Donald Hawk signed off on the explanation. So, that is a no and a half. You cannot have that in any form of racing series. If you're going to be an elite short track summer series, you cannot be any variant of NASCAR. Otherwise, it's going to be a huge turnoff for everyone. And it's alleged it's already suffering in the ratings because of the last 2 races at I-55 and Sharon Speedway. You cannot have that in that series. So you need to have a better emphasis on your title battle, and you have to do it correctly. Because if people start saying the fix is in, they ain't gonna come. If we want to watch a fixed sport, we'll go watch pro wrestling. Thank you. video explaining how Marco Andretti did not win the title in 2022. And this explanation is just bogus. You should have had Marco go back to his position before starting Heat 2. This was not a legitimate fix. And this better not happen in this series ever again. Now, do I make myself clear? One of the main reasons that the SRX Series was popular is because of the intended format. Have local level drivers race against the superstars. You notice this a lot in Season 1, but not necessarily in Season 2. Now, you did have some awesome guest appearances, especially at the Sharon Speedway when you had Chase Elliott and the Battle of the Blaneys. But here is the main problem that people have in terms of this. One of the weaknesses of IROC is that, for the most part, it ended up being NASCAR versus IndyCar, and it was pretty lopsided. SRX was starting to turn towards that category, and that is something we cannot have. I would like it, and this is one of the reasons I decided to increase it to 16 total drivers instead of 12 or 13. I would like it if you would have more non-NASCAR and non-IndyCar guys. Like, who won the very first SRX race? Do you remember? It was a non-NASCAR, non-IndyCar guy. And I believe it would be better if we could have a good combination of drivers from all sorts of different disciplines. Like, on Twitter, when they do the who would you like to see race in the series thing, of course I'm going to recommend my guys. But I've also had the idea to recommend drivers from other racing series. Like, I recommend a couple of my drag racers, Ron Capps and Cruz Pendragon, who are in the NHRA Funny Car division. And Cruz liked one of my tweets when I referenced him racing in SRX, so I know he wants to do it. So that would be cool. Because back when Tony Stewart had his, what was it called? What was his Eldorado event called? Prelude to the Dream, that's right. The drag racers even came out for that one, so I think it would be cool if you would have other drivers from other racing series, like your sprint car guys and your World of Outlaw guys and other late model guys. Like you had Peyton Sellers at the South Boston event. Have some NHRA guys come out. It's got to be more than just NASCAR versus IndyCar. It does not work that way. So I think it would be better if you had a lot more variety of drivers to have those drivers test their skills in equally prepared cars on the short track scene and see how that would work. We kind of had that with IROC, except it was all NASCAR tracks. And the Prelude to the Dream kind of sort of had that as well, because there were drag racers involved with that, and they did pretty well. But I think if the SRX series was more of a combination of a bunch of different racing series and not just 80% NASCAR versus IndyCar, I think it'd be much better for the product and the health of the series. Now, I know there's going to be some troll out there who's going to say, oh, Dragon's going to say too much Johnny Benson in the series. That's going to be number one. I would like to see Johnny Benson race in the SRX series at least once, but that's his decision, not mine. But the actual number one is something that's the exact opposite. The fact we had to deal with this for 2 seasons, and it's been nothing but a freaking disaster and a freaking train wreck, and people have gotten injured because of this. I cannot stress this enough. And I'm going to zoom in my camera very closely. That's how freaking serious and freaking frustrated I am about this. For the love of God, for season 3, do not invite Paul Tracy back! That absolute doofus is such a menace to all of auto racing, even before SRX was a thing. He is trash. He has no talent. All he knows how to do is wreck people and then complain when he gets a taste of his own medicine. It is absolute trash. And he's injured drivers in this series. In season 1, he injured both Bill Elliott and Willie T. Ribbs.
Oh, I did. Last year at Eldora, Paul Tracy got me and Bill Elliott in the same race. And Elliott's wrist was hurt, and he bent my thumb so far back, I had to pull it out and readjust it myself.
He's got a horrendous reputation. And really, I should have put this as number 9, interacting or interfusing with the do not invite drivers with a notorious dirty reputation. But Paul Tracy takes the cake. He's had this sort of reputation for as long as I've lived. And I'm in my 30s. That's how bad this is. That absolute clod does not deserve to be in this series. He didn't deserve to be in it day 1. He didn't deserve to be in it season 1. He definitely didn't need to be invited back for season 2. Like, when you have graphics explaining that he has been involved in the most incidents and it's not close, that is a problem. I remember when Tony Stewart had his moment raging out about the ridiculousness of the South Boston event, where he basically told all the drivers to try and calm down a little bit. I hope Tony realizes that a good emphasis of that is because of Paul Tracy. You have your crews working on all these cars, getting them repaired, and the vast majority of the time, the reason they need repairs is because of Paul Tracy. Do not invite Paul Tracy back to your series. If you want to have him around for entertainment, have him dressed as a clown and entertain the field during the heat breaks. You do not need him in a race car. Heck, I wouldn't even trust him in the pace car. Do not have Paul Tracy in your series. Why do I have to emphasize this? The fact I'm angrier about Paul Tracy being in this series than I am Marco Andretti getting a championship he did not earn shows how bad this is. So, for the love of God, do not have Paul Tracy in this series ever again, let alone for season 3. Okay, so that was the top 10 ways that the SRX series can improve itself in season 3, and I really hope you guys take this to heart, especially a couple of these, and that way, hopefully, we'll have no issues with the SRX series come season 3. Because if season 3 was anything like season 2, you're not going to have a season 4. And that'll be a damn shame. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave me your thoughts in terms of what you would recommend to improve the SRX series for season 3 come the following year. Thank you everyone for watching. This is Ultimate 23 Dragon, and that's my final answer.
Just hit the button. It doesn't take that long. Subscribe, hit the bells, follow.